Welcome back, everybody. If you're new, my name's Nicholas, and this is Investing Against the Grain. All right, today we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about CPI, we're going to talk about Twitter, we're going to talk about RoboTaxis. All right, a lot to get into. CPI. I'm not going to say the same things you've heard from everybody else, right? I have a little bit of a different spin on it. But before we talk about CPI, let's take a look at Tesla's stock price and see how it did compare to the market. If we zoom in here, we can see what the NASDAQ was at. So NASDAQ fell by 5.16% today. Now, Tesla normally is about a 1.5, 2 beta stock. So whatever the NASDAQ does, Tesla tends to do about, two times as worse or 2 times as good. All right. So that's what that means. So if we zoom out, remember that 5.16, right? Negative 5.16. If we go here and we check out Tesla, we'll see how they did. So Tesla actually outperformed. Yes, we're down 4%, right? Nobody likes a down red day, but this is actually a bullish sign, in my opinion, about the strength that Tesla had coming into today. All right, so even though we got some disappointing news with regards to CPI, although maybe not quite that disappointing, I'll talk about that in 2 seconds here. But the point is that Tesla held up against the macros, against the market. This could be for many different reasons, but most notably probably because of all of the things that are happening, whether it's window dressing, whether it's AI day, whether it's deliveries, whether it's Q3. I mean, you name it, whatever it is, Tesla held up really, really well here. So very happy about that. All right, let's talk about CPI. So by now, you've probably watched a million videos talking about CPI. You've probably seen on CNN, on Fox, on CNBC, whatever. All right, I'm here to give just a slightly different perspective. It sucked, okay? It's not what we wanted. It's not what was being predicted. But at the same time, it wasn't that bad, okay? What do I mean by this? All right, first of all, what happened? Let me share my screen with you again, all right? Because I think it's important to put things into context. I didn't hear anybody really talking about today. All right, so let me zoom this in. So this is essentially what we've seen for inflation, okay? So you've seen down here from August of 2020, kind of climbing all the way up. And then this right here in June was the high water mark of 9.1%. All right, so that was the high, right? That was the peak. And I think now we have more confirmation that that was the peak. So what we saw last time, right? We saw in July that we got an 8.5% reading, and that was a decline. And we were all really excited about that. But we'd been in this game before, right? If I come here, we saw 8.5 in March, and then it came down to 8.3, and everybody got excited. And what happened next? Well, we came up to try to get there to June to 9.1. So we kind of got faked out. In my opinion, today was actually a pretty good news. Why? Well, because we went from 9.1 to 8.5 in July. And then, you ran the risk of having another fake out, right? Another head fake. But instead, we actually came down again to 8.3. So this is actually the lowest, 8.3, the lowest since April, the lowest that we've seen since April. And arguably, the only thing lower than that has been in February at 7.9. So although it did not come in as low as we had wanted or what was expected, we did come in lower. So I do think that is some good news to at least be a little bit optimistic about. Now, with regards to the Fed, nothing changed, right? I told you guys yesterday. That the 75 basis rate hike is baked in. This just further cements this, okay? So this just confirms it's going to be a 75 basis point. And it just, again, confirms that we're going to get to a 4% Fed fund rate, and we're going to hold there. Jerome Powell told us that's what was going to happen, so that's what's going to happen. So none of this should have been a surprise. What is a surprise is that it was a little less good than what we had expected. And why was that? Well, it's nothing crazy, really. Food prices went up and housing went up. That's all it was. So a lot of what we've seen with the increase in rent prices are starting to come through. And keep in mind, it's not just rentals. It's also new houses that are being sold. Those are reported as rentals. It's kind of complicated, but essentially they see it's not even just houses were sold, but it's also current house values, right? So if my house went up in value by $100,000, well, how do they factor that in, right? Because that is part of inflation. Inflation's helping put prices up. So they tried to do a rental adjusted basis for what I could rent my house out now that it's increased in that value. So anyways, those are the things that sent the prices up. yes, energy costs have come down, they've held down, and that's probably why we're seeing this decline. There's also other things going on. We are seeing weakening in the housing market. We're starting to get some data that rental prices are increasing at a much, much slower rate. In other words, they're slowing down. So there is a lot of good things, but housing is a lagging indicator. We talked about that yesterday. The labor market, that's a lagging indicator. So we'll start to see that stuff come through probably towards the end of the year. And again, who said all that? Elon Musk said that the other day. I guess about a couple weeks ago now. So again, the man predicted when the recession would hit. The man's predicting when he sees that inflation will essentially alleviate, and he thinks it'll fall off a cliff. So we'll see. It's hard to bet against Elon, right? No one ever does really well betting against him. So what should you do moving forward, okay? Especially if you're someone like me who's all invested in Tesla. Well, again, this channel is all about long-term investing, okay? So if you are looking at the horizon 2, 3, 4, 5, a decade out, there's nothing you need to do. If you're in riskier type assets, well, you're gonna have to figure out what to do there. But in my opinion, I think today's noise is just noise. I told you this would happen. The fact that I could predict that this would be the reaction shows you that it's nothing too crazy or too much to worry about. And not to mention, the sell-off today really wasn't that bad. All right, 4% for Tesla, 5% for the NASDAQ. Look, a few months ago, if we had higher numbers like this or numbers that missed, we would have seen a 10, 20, maybe not 20, but 10, 12, 13% decline. So this is, I think, actually a kind of a good thing. So we'll get the Fed rate hike next week. We'll get past that. And then as far as Tesla investors, we'll start seeing all of our tailwinds come in. All right. So to me, this is just kind of a nothing burger. Yeah, we got another data point, but that's honestly stuff in the past. Let's just look to the future. We'll start seeing some better numbers with housing, hopefully, and we'll see what happens with the whole energy market. I mean, that's really going to be the deciding factor about inflation moving forward. It's what happens there, because OPEC could cut more oil, right? They just did a 100,000 barrel cut last week, so they could do that. We're going to stop doing oil releases from our strategic supply, and on top of that, you see China potentially coming back online if they start to stop with the zero COVID lockdowns, right? That'll allow their economy to open up, and when their economy opens up, means they demand more oil. There's not enough supply out there. Supply demand, boom, things go up. So energy is still the real risk, in my opinion. And again, you don't have to take my opinion for that. You can just see Warren Buffett, what's he buying? He's buying oil stocks right now. So anyways, let's move on. I want to get into some more Tesla news, okay? So let's talk about Twitter. Let's talk about RoboTaxis. Let's start with Twitter first. So we had the whistleblower session today in Congress, or the hearing, or whatever you want to call it. And I just want to go over something. I mean, I don't really care about all the details as far as what happens at the trial and Elon and all that. That's noise to me. It doesn't matter. But I just want to talk about something that he was saying that was kind of frightening. And what he was saying is that there's no logging within Twitter. And I feel like a lot of people might not know what was actually being said there. It seemed pretty clear that, the people who were asking him questions, maybe they didn't quite understand, because I think a much bigger deal would have been made of this. And so essentially what he was saying is in any company, right? Any company you work for, I guarantee this happens. Your IT division, your IT department, they log pretty much anything that happens, from simple things like, hey, you logged into your email address. You used the wrong password. You got rejected. You tried a second time. It got rejected. You try a third time. Maybe you get locked out for 15 minutes and you try again later. You signed into your Slack account. You opened up a certain application. You had a certain API call to an application. Anything, like everything that happens gets logged. All right. So these things are constantly being logged. And the reason we do that is so that we know what's happening within our environment. Who's trying to reach what? Who's doing what? Right. We need to know who has the keys and going in and out of different places within our house. And what he was saying is that Twitter essentially doesn't log anything, that there is no logging, right? Not just that, but they have no actual structure of how they retain our data, our user data, right? So in any company, again, just think about your file servers that you have at work, right? You probably have some network drive that you guys all use, and that's where you upload your files, your PDFs, your photos, your Word documents, whatever. Imagine if you just saved it somewhere and you had no idea where it was. Maybe it was in a file server on premise. Maybe it's in Azure. Maybe it's in AWS. Maybe it's in some other place. Maybe it's on a little hard drive here. But the company has no idea where all this company proprietary information is, and even worse, potentially your own private information, right? Our customers' private information. And so what he was saying is, if I decide, hey, I'm going to go delete my Investing Against the Grain Twitter and I want to delete it, well, they can't actually tell me that they've deleted all my information, my phone number, my username, my password, any other, my location, my home address, my potentially credit card information. They can't delete all of it. Why? Well, because they don't know where all the information is stored. They don't have any real organization. And so what they have been saying to regulators is, yes, we've deactivated their account without actually deleting all of their information, all of their data. So this is potentially really, really big deal. All right, this violates so many rules, so many laws, that this is going to be a big headache for the board and for their CEO moving forward. So I know a lot of people were kind of questioning why they didn't talk about the bots and all that. I just don't think the people who were asking the questions, the hearing, I don't think they really cared about bots. I do think that he's going to get deposed, and Elon's team will do what they do, and they'll probably bring him in. He'll be part of the trial, but I don't think that was the point of today. Today was mainly about why are you coming forward, why are you blowing the whistle, what's going on there that has you so worried, and this is a big deal, okay? And it's not even just about individuals like us using it, but it's the bigger picture of it. What does this do with other people, other nations who are trying to use or get our information, right? Imagine that there's somebody who is from Saudi Arabia and they've defected to the States, and they're essentially trying to get away from that regime, that way of life. And now people in Saudi Arabia want to find out where these people are who have left and haven't come back. I want to know where they are. I want to know where they're living. I want to know their geolocation, right? This is a very big risk, and not to mention other things that could happen, right? Whether it's Russia or China trying to have influence on us, or show certain ads to us to make us click on certain links, because now they can have information to us and figure out, it just goes on and on, right? This is a hacker's dream to have this kind of exposure and this type of hole and vulnerability. So just wanted to touch on that a little bit. But now let's talk about RoboTaxis. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. So let's zoom in here, make sure I'm not covering anything important. All right, so this is Gary Black. He says the most bullish message from Martin Viecha at Goldman Sachs presentation was that Tesla recognizes they need an affordable $30,000 to $35,000 compact EV prior to launching a Tesla RoboTaxi, combined with Martin's view that battery availability is no longer an issue. Now, let me scroll down here, because after that tweet, this is actually the response that came in. Martin responded saying that he never said anything about prior to 2024 RoboTaxi platform rollout. Interesting. So then, scroll back up here again. Gary rephrases, says, let me rephrase. Bullish that Tesla recognizes the need for a more affordable EV, $30,000 to $35,000, as part of their product lineup, and battery availability seem no longer a constraint. Not sure how this fits with company plans for a Tesla RoboTaxi network. Don't worry, I'll explain that in a second. So let's go ahead and, let's just go to my Twitter. So here you can see a tweet I put out today. Let me scroll in here. Okay. Scroll out a little bit. Perfect. All right. I said the Tesla RoboTaxi platform will be their next product, in my opinion. I've talked about this a lot. I think it's going to get announced during AI Day or some type of unveiling, much like what we saw with the humanoid. Keep getting people telling me, oh, it's just for getting more people to recruit, to get more people to come to Tesla. They unveiled a product last year, so it's not an unlikely possibility. It's been done before. Why can't it happen again? Anyways, I go on to say, I also think that this will be the platform for a cheaper Tesla model, much like the Model Y and Model 3 are on the same platform. RoboTaxi will have no wheels or pedals, and cheaper model will have wheels and pedals. AI Day Part 2 release, in my opinion. So what I'm saying here is that I believe the RoboTaxi vehicle will actually be a platform. And on that platform, they'll have two segments. You'll have RoboTaxis, and then you'll have the lower cost variant. This lower cost variant can look many different ways. Maybe you have a European model, maybe you have a Japanese model, maybe you have a Chinese model, a US model. But the point is, this will be the platform. This will be the lower cost platform. And on top of that platform, they will leverage it for RoboTaxi. So in the RoboTaxi aspect, it'll have no wheels, it'll a steering wheel, it'll have no pedals. It'll probably be way more streamlined. If it has seats, they'll probably be facing inward. So I think they'll leverage this platform, this lower cost platform, for multiple things, right? So they'll be able to have vehicles that are lower cost, but they can sell those vehicles into a market that potentially can't afford a 3 or a Y, like India, right? Or a market like Brazil or Argentina, right? These are markets that just don't have as many affluent people, but there is a huge market for a lower cost vehicle. At the same time, Tesla can leverage this same platform that they're creating for the RoboTaxi. That's what I think is happening. That's what I think they're working on. That's what I think the China team has been working on, the design team. And I think that is why Elon has mentioned this over and over. I think that's why this got brought up yet again during the Goldman Sachs meeting. So to me, it seems more and more obvious. Okay, I can't guarantee or say that's that obvious it's going to happen at AI Day. It just seems like that's where it would happen. It seems like the stars are aligning for that. Now, with that said, who knows what happens? If it doesn't happen, I still think that it's going to be the platform moving forward, right? This seems to just make sense for me. I mean, especially after what we saw with the 3 and the Y, right? That made sense. So why wouldn't that happen again, especially if you're trying to get to a lower cost of goods? Okay, so those are my thoughts. We covered CPI. Like I said, I don't think it's as big of a deal as everybody's making it out to be. Look, we still came down in the big scheme of things. All right, we're headed in the right direction. Inflation is cooling, just not as fast. But also keep in mind, we haven't really seen the effects of interest rates just yet. 2, we talked about what's going on with Twitter, all right? The big problem with Twitter right now, they're not capturing any logs. Even Tesla captures logs. I mean, sheesh, like they know your lumbar support, right? Every time you use it, don't use it. They can pull up the logs and see how much engagement, how much usage there is. Oh, we don't see any usage really, or very low usage in the passenger seat. Okay, let's nix that. Let's take that out. Let's iterate, right? Let's get rid of things people aren't using, save costs, and maybe add in things that people do want or have asked for, right? So if they're taking logs for their lumbar support, at the bare minimum, Twitter should be able to take logs for what's happening within their company. All right, and then we talked about my prediction once again about RoboTaxi and what was spoken at Goldman Sachs. So that's the highlight for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have one other thing to say, actually. I was just listening to Joe Rogan's latest podcast with, I wish I remembered his name. There's a doctor on there, but very insightful stuff. It's a very interesting podcast. I recommend you check it out. All right. Appreciate it. If you stuck to the end, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell. I love you all. Peace.